The sun had barely risen when Helena Almeida parked her old car in front of the municipal cemetery in Villanova. The fog hung low over the ground, shrouding the tombstones in an almost mystical veil. The air was cold and damp, but Helena barely felt the temperature. Her mind was immersed in a whirlwind of emotions that had not ceased since the death of Gabriel, her only son, less than a month ago. With heavy steps, she walked through the wrought iron gate. In her hands, she held a bouquet of white lilies, Gabriel's favorites, so tightly that her knuckles were white. Each step seemed harder than the last, as if the weight of grief were physically pressing down on her body. Helena wasn't sure what she had expected to find that day. Perhaps it was just the comfort of being close to her son, even if it was only his memory engraved in marble. However, as she approached the tombstone, she felt something strange in the air. She stopped, frowning. Something was off. On Gabriel's grave, where there were usually only wilted flowers and his framed photo, sat a wicker basket. Helena blinked several times, convinced her mind was playing tricks on her. But the basket was real, still, unmistakable. With shaking hands, she slowly approached it. The soft sound of movement coming from the basket made her stop suddenly. Helena held her breath, her heart racing. It was then that she heard it. A muffled cry, almost like a timid wail, that cut through the morning silence like a blade. "My God," Helena murmured, the lilies falling from her hands and scattering across the grass. She leaned over the basket, pushing aside the worn blanket that covered it. What she saw made the breath leave her lungs. Two brown eyes, identical to Gabriel's, stared at her. A baby, no more than a few months old, was there, nestled in the basket. He looked at her with an innocent curiosity that contrasted sharply with the morbid scene around him. Helena gasped, her mind spinning in confusion. Who could have left a baby there? And why? Then her eyes fell on an envelope pinned to the side of the basket. With trembling fingers, she took it out and opened it. The words written in hurried handwriting seemed to dance before her eyes. "This is the grandson you never knew. Gabriel was ashamed to tell you because he was born without arms. I am poor and have no way of raising him. But I knew you would be able to give him the love and care he deserves. Please take care of him. That is all I can ask." Helena's world seemed to have fallen apart again. A grandson. Gabriel had a son she had never known. And now this baby, so helpless, had been left in her care. The shock hit her in waves, but amidst the confusion and fear, something inside her began to firm up. She looked back at the baby, who now looked at her with an inexplicable trust, as if he knew exactly who she was. At that moment, amidst the chaos and sadness, Helena made a decision. Carefully, she lifted the basket and held it close to her chest, feeling the warmth of the small body against hers. Her teary but determined eyes reflected a new resolve. "Let's go home, little one," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Whatever fate has in store for us, we will face it together." And so, carrying a basket as heavy as the secret it held, Helena left the cemetery. Little did she know that that morning would mark the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. The road back home seemed longer than usual. Helena, with the basket firmly resting on the seat next to her, drove in silence, her mind flooded with memories of Gabriel. Every turn in the road brought images of him at different stages of his life. The shy boy with a backpack bigger than him on the first day of school. The restless young man who always hid his problems behind a smile. And more recently, the reserved man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. The baby in the basket, now sleeping peacefully, was a living reminder of everything she didn't know about her son. Gabriel had become distant in recent years, something Helena attributed to his job as a history teacher at the local school and the demands of an increasingly isolated adult life. But now she realized there was something more, something he had never had the courage to share. Arriving at her modest home, on Rua das Acacias, Helena carefully placed the basket on the kitchen table. She sat down heavily in a nearby chair, feeling the weight of grief and the new responsibilities that suddenly seemed overwhelming. "Gabriel, why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, her eyes fixed on the small face of the peacefully sleeping baby, so much like Gabriel's when he was a baby. Guilt began to grow inside her. As a mother, she had always thought she knew her son, that she could tell when he was in trouble, difficulties. But now, looking at the grandson he had never had the chance to introduce, she felt like she had failed. How had she not noticed? How had she not seen the signs? Helena's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the landline phone ringing. The sound echoed through the house, cutting through the heavy silence like a blade. She hesitated before answering. "Hello? Helena, it's Mariana." The voice of her neighbor and longtime friend sounded on the other end. "I saw you coming home with something in your arms. Is everything okay? Did something happen at the cemetery?" Helena froze. She knew she couldn't hide the baby forever, but she also wasn't ready to face the questions, the curious looks, and most of all, the judgments of the small town. "Mariana, I need your help," she said, her voice shaking. "Can you come here? But please don't tell anyone yet." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Mariana answered, "I'm coming." 15 minutes later, Mariana sat at the kitchen table, her wide eyes flickering between Helena and the baby, who was beginning to move in the basket. "Oh my God, Helena," Mariana whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. Is this real?" Helena nodded slowly, feeling relieved to finally share the burden of her secret with someone. "It is real, and I don't know what to do, Mariana. He's my grandson, and he was born without arms. How am I going to take care of him? How am I going to explain this to the town?" Mariana reached out and took Helena's hand firmly. "You're not alone, my friend. We'll figure out what to do together. But first, he needs a name." Helena looked at the small face that was now looking at her with curious eyes. A name. It was the first step in giving this baby a home, an identity, a place in the world. "Miguel," she said, her voice firm but full of emotion. "His name will be Miguel." As she held Miguel for the first time, a wave of determination washed over her. The sadness for the son she had lost was still there, but now there was something new. Hope. A spark of strength that Helena had never known she had. And so, with the support of a loyal friend and the comforting weight of her grandson in her arms, Helena took the first step on a journey that would transform not only her life, but that of the entire community around her. The day dawned peacefully in the small Villa Nova, but inside Helena's house, the mood was a mix of chaos and hope. In the weeks following Miguel's arrival, Helena began to adapt to her new routine. Her nights were interrupted by the baby's cries, her days filled with trips to the doctor and long conversations with Mariana about how to organize their new life. But there was one problem that Helena could not ignore: the community. Villa Nova was small, and secrets did not stay hidden for long. Despite her efforts to keep Miguel a secret, curiosity began to grow. One particularly challenging morning, Helena decided it was time to face the world. She dressed Miguel in the only new outfit she could buy and carefully placed him in a makeshift cart. With a deep sigh, she left to shop at the local grocery store. The bell on the door of the grocery store jingled as Helena entered, announcing her presence. The buzz of conversation abruptly ceased. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with curious glances and hushed whispers. Everyone seemed frozen, watching as she pushed the cart down the narrow aisle. Donna Celia, the owner of the grocery store, was the first to break the silence. Her voice wavered between curiosity and concern. "Helena, my dear, how are you? And who is this little one?" Helena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes fixed on her. "This is Miguel," she said, her voice more steady than she expected. "He's my grandson." The murmur ran through the store, like muffled thunder. Helena could feel the gears turning in the minds of those present, calculating ages, possibilities, and trying to fit this new information into their own narratives. "Your grandson," Donna Celia repeated, her eyes wide. "But Gabriel he never told," Helena interrupted softly, her voice carrying an unexpected force. "There are many things we didn't know about Gabriel." As the whispers grew louder, Miguel began to stir in the stroller. Instinctively, Helena picked him up in her arms, surprised by how natural the gesture felt. The movement brought silence again, but this time it was different. It wasn't just curiosity, it was shock. "He doesn't have," someone whispered hesitantly in the background. "No," Helena confirmed, her voice now firm and unwavering. "He doesn't have arms, but he has a heart, a mind, and a soul. And he has me." The silence was cut by an unexpected sound. Applause. Helena turned and saw Seu Antonio, the town butcher, known for his reserved and taciturn manner, clapping his hands. The man's eyes were watering. "Bravo, Donna Helena," he exclaimed, his voice hoarse. "Bravo." That moment marked a turning point. Like a thread pulled in a ball of yarn, the tension in the store began to dissipate. Donna Celia offered to help her get whatever Helena needed, and others began to offer support in small but meaningful ways. On the way home, Helena reflected on how life could change in an instant. Less than a month ago, she had been a woman consumed by grief, invisible in her pain. Now, she carried Miguel in her arms, as if every step were an act of defiance against fate. When she got home, she put Miguel to bed and sat down at the kitchen table. There, in the silence, a thought struck her. What if Gabriel was trying to tell her? What if she had ignored the signs because she was too focused on other things? The guilt weighed heavily again, but this time it was accompanied by a fierce determination. Helena knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would do everything she could to take care of Miguel. Not just for him, but for Gabriel, for the son who never had the chance to share this secret. That night, as Miguel slept, Helena made a silent promise to the baby and to herself. They would face the world together, one day at a time. Little did she know that the biggest secret was yet to come, and that its revelation would change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The days that followed Helena's first appearance with Miguel were a whirlwind of emotions. Villanova, with its peaceful routine, was soon buzzing with rumors about the mystery baby. Every corner seemed to be home to a group of residents whispering, pointing, and speculating about what had really happened to Gabriel and who Miguel was. Helena, determined not to let the gossip dominate her life, kept her head held high. But inside, she felt the weight of the judgmental looks, the unasked but clearly present questions. How could she explain something that she herself was still trying to understand? On one particularly difficult afternoon, Helena decided to go out with Miguel again. She knew she had to face the community head-on, to show them she had nothing to hide. Before leaving, she called Mariana. "Can you come with me to the square?" Helena asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Of course, my friend," Together we are stronger. Mariana arrived a few minutes later, and the two of them walked to the central square, where most of the residents gathered to talk and rest in the shade of the trees. Helena was pushing the stroller with Miguel, feeling as if she were crossing a battlefield. The hubbub in the square stopped almost immediately when Helena appeared. All eyes turned to her. Mariana squeezed her arm in support. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Show them how strong you are." Helena lifted her chin and walked to the center of the square. She stopped next to a bench and carefully picked Miguel up in her arms. The baby, oblivious to the tension around him, looked at the curious faces with his big, innocent eyes. Donna Celia was the first to approach, as always. With her motherly demeanor, she looked at Miguel and then at Helena. "Helena, my dear, is he—" "Miguel," Helena said, her voice firm. "My grandson. And I know many of you have questions, so I'll answer before the rumors get out of hand." A hush fell over the square. Everyone waited anxiously for Helena's words. "Gabriel had a son he didn't tell me about because he was ashamed. Miguel was born without arms, and that scared my son. He made mistakes, as we all do, but he was still a good man. Now Gabriel is gone, and Miguel is with me. He's my responsibility, my blood, and I love him as I loved Gabriel." There was a murmur among the crowd. Some people seemed even more curious, others shocked. But something changed in the air. Old Seu Antonio, once again, was the first to break the silence. "And what does it matter if he doesn't have arms?" he said, with a firmness that made many raise their eyebrows. "This boy is a gift, Helena, and you a brave woman. Who are we to judge?" One by one, the residents began to approach. Donna Celia touched Miguel's face tenderly. "He's beautiful, Helena. If you need anything, let me know." Mariana, next to Helena, smiled proudly. The small square, once full of tension, began to transform. Offers of help began to pour in. Diapers, clothes, even ideas on how to adapt Helena's house for Miguel. As the sun began to set, Helena felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Despite the challenges, the community had taken a step toward acceptance. But as she walked home with Miguel in her arms, a feeling lingered in her mind. There was still something she didn't know. Something Gabriel hadn't had time to tell her. Helena looked at Miguel, who was sleeping quietly in her lap. "Whatever it is," she whispered, "we'll face it together." That night, for the first time, Helena felt like she was beginning to find her place in the new world that life had imposed on her. However, little did she know that the biggest secret was still hidden, waiting for the right moment to come to light. And this secret would test not only her strength, but everything she thought she knew about her family and herself. The routine in Helena's house began to stabilize. Although the challenges were daily, Miguel's smiles and the support of the community gave her the strength to move forward. However, something inside her was still unresolved. The mystery surrounding Gabriel and Miguel's past still weighed on her mind, like a cloud that never completely disappeared. On a sunny afternoon, while Miguel took a nap, Helena decided to tackle a task she had been putting off for months: organizing the attic. Among boxes of photographs, books, and old clothes, she searched for something that could help her better understand what Gabriel was hiding. After hours of rummaging through the papers, her eyes fell on a worn leather folder hidden deep inside a dusty box. With trembling hands, Helena opened the folder. Inside, she found a stack of papers, certificates, letters, and documents. The first paper she picked up was a birth certificate. The name on the document made her heart race. Miguel Gabriel Santos. "Miguel," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "He had already chosen your name." Continuing to look through the papers, Helena found a series of letters written by Gabriel and a woman named Anna. The words in the letters revealed a story she could never have imagined. Gabriel had met Anna during a research trip to a nearby city. What had begun as a brief romance had turned more serious when Anna discovered she was pregnant. But fate had complicated the situation even further. Tests revealed that the baby would be born without arms, and Anna, terrified of the responsibility and the judgment she would face, decided that the best thing to do would be to give the child up for adoption. Gabriel, torn between his desire to raise his son and his fear of disappointing his mother, eventually gave in to Anna's decision. The last letter, dated just a week before Gabriel's fatal accident, was a testament to his change of heart. "Anna, I can't live with this lie anymore. I'm going to get our son and tell my mother everything. I know she'll understand. Together, we'll give Miguel the love and care he deserves." Helena let the letters fall to the floor, feeling as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. Gabriel had been on his way to get Miguel when he was in the accident. He died trying to do the right thing. At that moment, Miguel's cries echoed through the house, bringing Helena back to reality. She ran downstairs quickly, picking up the baby and hugging him tightly. "Your father wanted you, my love," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He loved you so much." In the days that followed, Helena was on an emotional roller coaster. The joy of knowing that Gabriel had chosen to do the right thing warred with the renewed pain of his loss. But above all, there was a fierce determination to honor her son's final wish. Then, a week after the letters were discovered, Helena received an unexpected visitor. When she opened the door, she was met with a young woman with frightened eyes and disheveled hair, holding a faded purse. She seemed hesitant, as if struggling for words. "Ms. Helena," the woman began, her voice shaking. "I am Anna." Helena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Here stood Miguel's mother, the woman Gabriel had loved. The past she had been trying to understand now stood in her doorway, waiting to be confronted. "Come in," Helena said, with a mixture of curiosity, apprehension, and hope. "We have much to talk about." As Anna walked through the door, Helena knew that this conversation would change everything. But she also knew that no matter what lay ahead, her priority was clear: to protect Miguel and fulfill the promise she had made to Gabriel. What Helena did not yet know was that Anna did not only bring answers, but also an even deeper secret. A secret that would test not only her strength, but also everything she thought she knew about her own life. The silence in the living room was thick, broken only by the ticking of the old wall clock. Helena and Anna stared at each other, two women connected by Miguel and by secrets from the past. Anna seemed small, almost shrunken into herself, but her eyes, although anxious, showed determination. "Donna Helena," Anna began, hesitantly. "I didn't know if I should come, but after everything that happened, I needed to see how Miguel was doing." Helena studied the young face in front of her. Anna couldn't have been more than 25 years old, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had lived several lives. Helena's voice finally broke the silence. "He's fine. Miguel is a strong boy," she said, holding her trembling hands. "But tell me, Anna, why didn't you ever tell me anything? Why only now?" Anna lowered her eyes, tears streaming silently down her face. "I was scared," she confessed, her voice breaking. "Scared of not being enough, scared of what people would say, scared of facing what this meant to me. But most of all, I was scared of facing the truth about who I am." Helena frowned, confused by Anna's words. "What do you mean by who you are?" she asked, trying to understand what seemed like a riddle. Anna took a deep breath, as if preparing to jump off a cliff. "There's something you need to know. Something that not even Gabriel knew," she said, hesitating. "I'm your daughter, Dona Helena. The daughter you gave up for adoption 25 years ago." Helena's world seemed to stop. The room spun around her as long-buried memories flooded her mind. The fear of a teenage pregnancy, the painful decision to give up her baby for adoption, and the secret she had sworn never to tell, not even Gabriel. "No, it can't be," Helena whispered, her voice barely coming out. "How do you know that?" "I found out a few years ago, when I needed my medical records," Anna explained. "When I found out about my birth mother, I was terrified. And then I met Gabriel. He didn't know, I swear. I never imagined something like this could happen." The implications of the revelation hit Helena like a wave. Miguel wasn't just her grandson. He was her great-grandson. Gabriel had unknowingly fallen in love with her half-sister. The truth was more devastating than anything Helena could have imagined. Miguel's sobs from the next room brought them both back to reality. Helena stood up instinctively, but Anna stopped her with a gesture. "Please, can I see him?" she asked, her eyes filled with emotion. Helena hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. Together they walked to the room where Miguel was. Anna approached the crib, her eyes filled with tears as she saw her son's small face. She reached out, gently touching Miguel's face. "He's so beautiful," Anna whispered, the tears finally escaping. It was then that Helena noticed something that made her freeze. A birthmark on Anna's shoulder, identical to Miguel's. The past and the present collided in an overwhelming way. "Anna," Helena began, her voice barely audible. "What were you about to tell me before?" Anna turned to face Helena, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "Dona Helena, I am your daughter. Miguel is not just your grandson. He is your great-grandson. Gabriel and I," without knowing, the words hung in the air, loaded with an indescribable weight. Helena felt a whirlwind of emotions: shock, sadness, guilt, and finally acceptance. She looked at Anna, then at Miguel. "What do we do now?" Anna asked, her voice full of uncertainty. Helena sighed, feeling the weight of everything she had just learned. But at the same time, she found an unexpected strength within herself. Now we start again," Helena said, her voice firm. "Together." As the sun set, the long shadows in the room blended with the soft light of the evening. 3 generations of a newfound family were united, ready to face whatever the future held. What Helena did not yet know was that this journey would not only be about rediscovery and acceptance, but also about how the power of love can transform even the deepest secrets into a new beginning. The days that followed the revelation were a whirlwind of emotions for Helena, Anna, and little Miguel. Their coexistence, initially marked by awkward silences and interrupted conversations, began to give way to an unexpected connection. Helena and Anna, linked by blood ties and by Miguel, discovered that together they could face the judgment of little Villanova. Helena knew she could not keep everything she had discovered a secret. Villanova was a city where people noticed everything, and gossip had already reached proportions that she could not control. It was time to face the truth, not only for herself, but for Miguel and Anna. She decided to organize a tea party in her garden and invited some of the most influential figures in the city: Dona Celia, Seu Antonio, Father João, and even Mayor Rodrigo. It was a bold move, but necessary. That Sunday afternoon, Helena's garden was simply arranged, with tables covered in white tablecloths and plates of homemade cookies. Tension hung in the air as the guests arrived, curious and cautious. Helena, with Miguel in her arms and Ana by her side, knew that the moment was decisive. "Friends," Helena began, her voice trembling but firm, "I called you here today because I know there are many questions in the air, questions that I myself had difficulty answering. But it is time to tell the truth." The silence was absolute while Helena told everything. Her teenage pregnancy, the painful decision to give Ana up for adoption, the unexpected reunion, and finally, how Miguel, Gabriel, and Ana's baby had become the link that brought them together. She spoke sincerely, without hiding her pain, but also without failing to show the love that now united her family. When Helena finished, her eyes were filled with tears, both hers and many of those present. The first to speak was Father João, who took a deep breath before speaking. "Life sometimes presents us with challenges that we do not understand, Helena. But what I see here is love, forgiveness, and a second chance. Who are we to judge what God has united?" Father João's words seemed to break the tension. Donatilia was next, discreetly wiping away her tears. "Helena, you have carried so much alone. And Ana, my dear, how brave you were to come back and face all this. You are examples of strength." Soon others began to speak, not with judgments, but with words of support, and even suggestions on how to help. Mayor Rodrigo promised that the city government could provide resources to adapt Helena's house to Miguel's needs, while Seu Antonio suggested organizing a fundraiser to buy essential items. As the meeting continued, Helena's garden, once a lonely space, became a place of welcome and celebration. The support of the residents made Helena realize that, even in the midst of so many difficulties, the community could be a refuge, not a threat. At the end of the day, when the last guest had left, Helena, Ana, and Miguel were left alone in the garden. The sky, painted in shades of pink and orange, seemed to reflect the feeling of renewal that hung in the air. "Mom," Ana said, hesitating as she used the word for the first time, "do you think everything will be okay?" Helena looked at her daughter and then at Miguel, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. For the first time in months, she felt a peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. "Everything will be okay," she replied with a soft smile. "It won't be easy, but now we're together. With love, we can overcome anything." That night, as she put Miguel to bed, Helena reflected on how far they had come. From a grieving grandmother and a guilt-ridden young woman, they were now a family united by love and determination. There were still challenges ahead, but Helena knew that love was enough to get them started. The small town of Vila Nova would never be the same again, and neither would Helena and her family. Together, they were ready to face the future, one day at a time, building a new story full of hope, strength, and the certainty that, even in the midst of chaos, there is always room to start over. The months that followed brought a mix of challenges and victories for Helena, Ana, and Miguel. The small house on Rua das Acacias, once a silent refuge, now pulsated with life. Miguel grew up strong and healthy, filling each day with laughter and discovery. Helena and Ana, despite their differences in personality and initial difficulties, found a way to live and grow together. Word of Helena's true family story spread throughout Vila Nova, but instead of judging, the community came together. Miguel became a symbol of resilience and love for the town. People who had previously looked on with curiosity and distrust now offered support, ideas, and even arms to carry the little boy when Helena needed a break. A major milestone for Helena was when she received an unexpected invitation from Mayor Rodrigo to participate in an event in the main square. It was to be a celebration honoring the town's families who had overcome challenges. Initially hesitant, Helena accepted, realizing that this would be an opportunity to show that her story was not about tragedy, but about overcoming challenges. That afternoon, the square was full. Children played, adults chatted, and the air was filled with anticipation. When it was her turn to speak, Helena took the stage with Miguel in her arms and Anna by her side. "Good afternoon, my friends," Helena began, her voice firm but full of emotion. "Today, I am here to share something I have learned in the last few months. Life often presents us with challenges that seem impossible to overcome. Losses, secrets, fears. But what I have learned is that love is stronger than any difficulty." She paused, looking at Miguel, who was looking at her with the same curious eyes as Gabriel. "This little one here has taught me that even the most unexpected situations can bring beauty and hope. Miguel, my daughter Anna and I, we are a family that was born from deep pain, but that found strength in unity." The crowd, silent until then, began to applaud. The applause grew louder, echoing through the square and warming Helena's heart. She felt tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of joy and gratitude. After the event, as the sun set, Helena, Anna, and Miguel walked back home. The path seemed shorter, lighter. Sitting in the living room, with Miguel asleep in her arms, Helena found herself reflecting on the journey they had traveled. "Who would have thought?" she murmured, with a soft smile. Anna, sitting next to her, looked at her. "Who would have thought what?" Helena smiled, looking at her daughter. "That a tragedy could bring so much love. That I could learn so much from you and Miguel. That I would still have the strength to start over." Anna took Helena's hand, squeezing it gently. "You are stronger than you think, Mom. You always have been." That night, as she placed Miguel in his crib, Helena made a silent promise. She would protect that family with everything she had. No matter what the future held, she knew they were ready to face it. Villanova would never be the same again. Helena, Anna, and Miguel were now part of a new story. A story about second chances, about the transformative power of love, and about how even the deepest secrets can open doors to a new beginning. And so, when she closed her eyes that night, Helena slept peacefully. There were no more shadows from the past to haunt her, only the certainty that, together, they could overcome anything. Their story was not only a lesson for the community, but also an inspiration for all who believed that love always finds a way. Dear listeners, we have reached the end of this exciting journey. If you were touched by this story as much as we were, don't forget to like it, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Until next time.